I'm really excited.
All right, welcome to August's Q&A call. I'm really excited. Taisha and I were just briefly talking, and she has her first international interview, which is like radio interview, which is so dope and so exciting. So sorry, I forgot to hit record in the beginning, but super excited to hit it now and super excited for you, Taisha. So amazing, so amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, what questions are coming up for you? It could be about the interview, it could be about the course, it could be about business in general. What questions are coming up for you?
Yeah, so I was thinking, I may have to like schedule a one-on-one with you, because I have a lot of questions. Like, my focus was on the book and all of that, and you have helped me with that as being my book writing coach. But I just know this is gonna carry over into the coaching. So that's like my main goal to carry over
Yeah.
into the coaching. And I just need like a game plan of like I want to be very strategic and intentional about it. Like having a game plan of when I should launch. I got the name of my coaching business. Is LLC good enough? Do I need a trademark? Like I have so many questions in
Yeah.
regards to that.
I love those questions. So, LLC is a wonderful start. I think you could eventually go forward and trademark. I'll be honest, trademarking is not my strong suit. So I am just learning about
Mhm.
like the process of like trademarking and stuff. But I think LLC is a great foundational place to start, like as you continue to build out. And then when you think of like a product suite, so a product suite is like, let me see if I can actually pull up. I know I have like a document that I made with a product suite on it because actually that's what we're talking about today in masters. But I want to show
Okay.
you this graphic um, because I feel like it'll help break down. I did a training actually in the book writing boot camp on this thing. Um,
Okay.
So a product suite is essentially like a system that you take people through your different offers. So if I use you specifically, you came in through like a free training, and then you went into my book writing boot camp. You wrote your book, and then you were like, "Oh, I want to take this book and I want to leverage it, and I want to become a coach." And then you came to the Elevate method. So that is essentially like me moving you up my product suite. And so
Oh, okay.
I'll show you. This is
Makes sense.
an example of a product suite. Okay. So this is an example of a product suite that I have. So like I have a free training called Write Your Book in 30 Days. Then then people can buy my book called Make Your Message Your Masterpiece, which is all about writing a book. Then they can move into the book writing boot camp. They can go into the Write
Mhm.
Your Book in a weekend, and then they can go through my publishing company. So that's an example of my book writing product suite. So
Okay.
you think of your product suite, and it doesn't have to be all necessarily around book writing. I want you to
Mhm.
think about like how, and it doesn't need to be big like this. Like it could literally be, let me see if I have another example. You could have three. I don't have one example of three, but like here's an example of my coaching product suite. So people might
Mhm.
take my free standout coaching quiz, then they might move into Elevate Your Coaching sessions, then they may move into my Coach to Clients Group Academy, and then the Elevate Method, and then the Elevate Method Masters. But
Okay.
basically what happens is I'm catching everyone in this free offer. So I'm catching everyone in something like free, and then I'm taking them to something small ticket, which could be like a book, and then I'm taking them to that next level. So when you think of your product suite that you're essentially going to create, you want to have like something at the base that brings people, that funnels people in, brings them in. That's all usually free or really, really cheap. Your book would be that next step. And then the third step would be your coaching. So when you think about
Okay.
your book, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing like the details of your book since it's not released yet, that's okay. But when you think about your book, I want you to consider like the way in which it ties into your coaching business. So like
Mm.
say, for example, your book is on, I don't know, I'm going to give an example like Your book is on healing. And then in your coaching, you're going to do one-on-one hypnosis around healing. So what you would do is
Mm,
your book, you would promote your book a lot because that's a cheap and affordable way for people to get in your energy, to see what it is that you have to offer, to see
mhm,
what it's like to work with you. And then that next step can become that one-on-one offer or that group coaching program offer. So to answer your question, to go back to your question, when you're like, when should I be launching? Really, I think that once you launch your book, I think you should be preceding, like dropping little hints that, something big,
mm.
dropping hints that your coaching business is coming, and then streamline it right into your business. Like,
I love that.
have your book and then you streamline it, like, now you've tried this book, let's move right into it. Because if we look at my book writing product suite, people can read my book, Make Your Message Your Masterpiece, and it has a lot
Mhm.
of amazing content in it. But if you really want that hand holding, then now you move into the book writing boot camp, right? If you really
Yeah.
want like a VIP offer, you move into the Write Your Book in a Weekend, where I literally
Okay.
am on Zoom with you, walking you through writing that book in a weekend. So it streamlines right into that process. In the coaching piece, I have a book called Master Your Mindset. And
Mhm.
um, in this book, I'm teaching you the power of your mind and how your mind works. And this book is really all it's talking about is NLP. And so then
Mhm.
it's a no-brainer once people kind of sample like NLP and the way the mind works, then they're like, wow, I really want to leverage that. Then I can talk about the Elevate method. I can kind of bring them into it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes so much sense. Oh my God. I
Mhm.
really felt that because like, I'm a layer type of person. I feel like I call it like perfume, sweet perfume. Like with perfume, for it to last all day, you need to use the bath, the same brand of the bathing, the shower gel or the perfume, and it's layers to it for it to linger. And so I
Yes.
was like, I need layers, to for it to linger, for this to stay in someone's spirit, because I didn't want to just launch a book. And I also wanted to have a book where people can like go back to, it's not like I read it and I put it on the shelf or I give it away. It was something that they can go back to. And so this book is really and it's talking about purpose. So it's really building them up for the workbook that I'll be doing, and that'll be for my group sessions. And like with me, my testimony is, teenage mother and all of that, how I changed my life. I'm called to like the teens. I'm called to the young adults, and because it's a part of my testimony. And you've told me, you said your experience makes you an expert. And
Yes.
who's better to talk to them than someone who has been in their shoes, And so and my daughter, like, she's like my little partner. So she may even be coming on board on some of this stuff with me to speak to the millennials, but I'm not just trying to reach adults. I'm trying to reach young adults, the teens, and that's how I made my book. I made it so real so that it can reach them as well. And so I'll be doing the workbook and like group sessions. I do have a place that I could go to. I have an office space that has been offered to me as well, a really nice office
What?
space. Yes, that I can rent. Because people asked me, they was like, some people are kind of tired of virtual. So they asked me, they said, can I come in? I would rather come in and sit on the couch. And I was like praying one day, and this therapist that's in my city, she was just like, I have rental space. If you need rental space for coaching, for counseling, I'm here. And I'm like, wow, she's right in the neighborhood, and it's a beautiful space, like very beautiful. So
That's
I
amazing that she gifted
mhm,
that to you. Like, oh my
mhm.
goodness.
Yeah, yeah, she's opening up the doors for that, even for like the classroom. She have classrooms as well, and it's a nice space. Like it's beautiful. It's not like crappy, where people come in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, should I sit down or not?" It's very luxurious, and she has a very low price to rent it out. and I was just like, wow, everything is here. But you know how you can have just all of these ideas like bombarding you, and it's like, where do you start? But you kind of let me know like it's in layers, start off with the book, then lean into like go into the coaching right after that. And I wanted to also ask you about the master classes. Remember I told you I have to do like I have to get pre-sales,
Yeah.
and you said, well, you should offer something free, like a free master class. So how does that work? Like,
Yep. So that would be the bottom of the funnel. When we think about that funnel, that free offer, then you
mm,
go like you talk about your book or something at the end of it, or you can talk about your coaching at it, and then that
okay.
step. So basically, when you think about it, like, so if somebody doesn't know me and they're like, man, I want to learn how to master my mindset, they may come to my training to learn how to do it. But what it does is through a free offer, like a master class or even a low ticket, because some people will do their master class for like $7 or $17 or $27. I do a lot of mine for free at this stage in my business, and that may change.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a few paid ones. Like I have the
Mm-hmm.
passive profits, that's a paid one. The repurpose and relax is a paid one. So I have a couple paid, but I have a couple free. But
Okay.
when we think about people wanting to invest with us, they have to know us, they have to like us, and they have to trust us. Because the truth is, there's going to be a million people that are doing the same things as me. So why would somebody want to work with me? And
Right.
so we bring people into our space. We want to give them amazing value. And that's what a masterclass does. So a masterclass gives somebody amazing value for free. And then they get to know you, right? They learn who you are as a person. They in turn like you, and they begin to trust you because they're like, man, if she gave me this value for free, what could I get for paid, right? If I invest with her, like what could that next step be? And it almost makes it a no-brainer to take that next step investment. So again, let's say, for example, your book is on healing. And let's say that you are like, okay, so the book is on healing. You might, your masterclass might be the 3 things you need to make healing seamless. And so you're giving information
Mm.
through the book, you're giving those tools that allow integration. And then with the coaching, you're giving an even deeper level of integration. So
Mm.
it continues to take it up a notch. So it's kind of like it's, in my write your book in 30 days. I give the 9 steps I took to write my book in 30 days. But inside the book writing bootcamp, I give you the how to actually incorporate those steps. So I'm still giving amazing information in the free training, but in my group coaching program, the book writing bootcamp, I'm giving the how to actually be able to do it.
Oh, okay. So, okay, because I was like, how can I give so much so that they can feel like, wow, this was so worth it for free without you giving too much, or if that
Well,
makes sense.
here's the thing, like most master classes are 30 minutes to an hour. That's the sweet spot where you're going to keep people's attention. Our attention
Mm-hmm.
spans are really short.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you really think about all that how could you even give that all away in an hour? You couldn't. Right.
Right.
There's so many layers to what especially when you're talking about like you said, for example, like teen moms. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many layers to being a teen mom, right? There's layers to like learning to love yourself, learning to accept, society's impression of you. There's layers of financially being able to provide for your kid. There's the layer of like co-parenting if you are co-parenting. There's the layers of like how
Mm-hmm.
do you explain it to your family? The layers of like, do you go to college if you have a kid or do you not? Like there's so many different layers that you could literally take any angle and talk about that in a master class and then send them to your next step for more details, more information, more integration.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense because I know, like, when I first met you, like, I was praying and I was like, how am I going to write this book? I know you gave me a word, and, I've been journaling, but I've never written a book before. And so you popped up I feel like Facebook heard my prayer too. Because you popped up out of nowhere, how to write a book in 30 days. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, is this fake? Is this fake? And so I looked into your name and I'm like, this is a real person. Like I just scrolled down your page, your Facebook page. I'm like, this is a real person. And then when I read your bio, I'm just like, oh my God, like this is my person. This is her. Like she's doing everything that I am, I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be like, this is amazing. And so when I went to your book launch, you gave us just enough to know, what to do. And we were taking notes and everything. And then you sent us like a booklet of the slides. And so it was just so dope to have all of that. But on top of that, at the end of it, it was like, make a decision,
Mhm.
because you gave us like a really good offer at that time for book writing. And I was just like, I told my husband, I was like, I feel called, I feel pulled to
Mhm.
just do it. And I didn't want that to pass me by. So I learned from that. I go back on that, and you had your slideshow together, everything. And so I'm like, man, I could really do that. I can do a master class.
That's exactly what you just said is the exact process I teach. Like literally, you're like, okay, this is going to be my topic. I'm going to create
Hmm.
slides. I'm going to give a ton of value, and then I'm going to get them to the point where it's like, now it's time to make a decision, right? What
Right.
decision your future self will thank you for? And then you literally ask them, like, and give an offer too. So let's say, for example, at the end of your master class, you decide to promote one-on-one coaching. Well,
Hmm.
maybe normally your one-on-one coaching is $200 a session. Now you're like, you know
Hmm.
what, I'm going to promote it for $97, which makes it like, again, that no-brainer deal. Like jump on now while you're getting a really good discount, because the book writing boot camp at the time of this recording is $444.
Hmm.
That's if you go through my training, and at the end of my training I give you a discount. If you don't go through my training, it's $797. So it's like you get a
Gotcha.
really good deal when you're on that training. And again, it's a fast action bonus. You have to be able to move through it quickly. So you could do the exact same thing. You could have slides, you could have a workbook, you could choose not to. Like some people don't have workbooks. I have a client that just launched and she didn't feel aligned to do a workbook, and that's okay. You
Mhm.
don't have to do a workbook. You just have slides and tell them to kind of take out some notes and jot down their notes the way that they want to jot down the notes, and create space for them to ask questions. You give information, and then you tell them about the next steps. And that's why I said it's all really intertwined, that master class, that book, as well as your coaching. It's all really intertwined because it's all a part of like the process and what you're bringing to the world, the gifts that you're bringing to the world.
Okay. Okay. That's wonderful. And so I'll, sit down and just kind of write the vision out for that master class, because I do want to give them something where they feel like, man, I walked away and I need to set up coaching. And I was just comparing prices for coaching too. And so I was just like, man, what kind of coach am I? Because I think I mastered in NLP, like when I took your test,
Mhm.
and you were just like, that makes so much sense. And so I was like, I think NLP was one of my top ones. And so I'm like, what kind of coach should I call myself? And I just came up with I know we said that we're a transformational coach, but I just kind of came up with transformational mindset coach.
So I
And
actually call myself a transformational coach too. And what came
mhm.
to mind, what dropped in my spirit
I'm
when,
sorry, someone just fell. One of my kids. I'm sorry.
uh-oh, hopefully they're okay.
I'm so sorry. I heard
Don't
a
be
big
sorry.
bowl. It
Don't be
started.
sorry. You're a parent. I would have took off running too. I hope they're okay. Is your baby okay?
Yeah, they are.
Okay. They always do that when you're on the phone. I told my daughter earlier, I was on a call with a client, and I was like, make sure you're quiet. I'm on a call. She's like, okay. I get on the first 2 minutes and she's like, no. She's like screaming, laughing on the phone with her friend. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, no respect. Today, and I feel bad because I was traveling all week for Junior Olympics. I have like
Mm.
so many calls today. Like right after this is masters, right after that is a client call. Like I mean back to back to back calls. So I'm like, I really just hope they can hold it together. But,
Yeah,
um,
I
um,
understand.
so to answer your question, oh man, I forgot what you asked. It was really good too. I was ready to answer it. Do you remember what
Oh,
you asked?
I don't. My mind is still
Oh,
on
oh,
the
I
boom.
remember. You were saying like, what should you call yourself? What dropped in my spirit when you asked that was mindset. So it's funny you said that,
Mhm.
because I do think that you do a really good job with like encouragement, with affirming people, with lifting people up, and all of that to me relates to like the mindset piece of it.
Mhm.
Oh, I totally, totally love that for you. And then when you say, I call myself a transformational coach, so I'm already in love with that name. So when you said
Okay.
transformational mindset coach, I was like, wow, that all just flows together like really, really well. So I definitely think, and again, like you're not married to the title. So let's say as you
Mhm.
continue to expand and you're like, oh, I want to call myself a transformational leadership coach, or I want to call myself a transformational life
Wow.
coach, or whatever. Like you can always change it as you continue to experience like the work that you're doing. Like as you continue to work with people and you see the shifts that you create for people, then you can say like, oh man, I want to title it this, or I want it to be this. So you get to change that however you see fit.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Thank you. That makes
Well,
so much sense. Yeah.
you're welcome. I wanted to give you some feedback. I mean, since it's you on here, I might as well talk. So, um,
Mhm.
when you were talking about the master class, you were saying like you want to make sure you bring value. When I think about the layout, and I'll say it on here, you can always listen to the replay. But when I think about the layout of a master class, what you want to do is you want to bring people in, set expectations, like let them know what to expect, and let them know why they want to stay to the end. Like, so you might say something like, you're going to get 9 amazing steps that will help you write your book in 30 days, right? You want to make it like intriguing when they first get on. Then you want to tell who you are, and you want to tell about yourself from a position of like authority, from a position of
Mhm.
like, I think about my master class when I talk about the Passive Profits master class right now that's launching. Um,
Mhm.
in that masterclass, I talk a lot about like how I went from hustling and hard work and overthinking to really finding ways to earn passive income, and how I prioritize that passive income. And so I share that in the beginning about me, one, because I want to let them know who I am, but two, I want them to see why I'm essentially the expert in what it is that I'm teaching. So even when I talk about like in my Write Your Book in 30 Days, I'll say I'm an 11 times best-selling author, but I'm also a person who was told that I should never write a book from my high school English teacher. And so I talk
Mhm.
about that piece of it. So then they're like, oh, I'm intrigued. Like she must have some information. So if you're doing a master class on like teen moms, you can say like, I'm a teen mom that has now, moved out and started my own business. Like let people see like what's possible for them. And then after you do the intro, then you would go into the bulk of the material. So like the steps or the content or whatever it is, and then you wrap it up with what it is that you're offering and then open up for questions. So that's kind of the flow and the way in which I run master classes. That has worked really well. I love to keep questions at the end, because I feel like it helps people want to stay to the end, because now it feels personal.
Yeah.
They can open up and they can ask questions. Now they've stayed. I don't mind answering questions throughout, I will, but I'll say like if it's a really big question, definitely save that to the end, because at the end we'll definitely be able to dive in deep with it. And that helps people to stay to the end, which I love.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I can do that. I can definitely do that.
Yeah.
And and my other question is, so oh, what was I about to say? So there's like so many ideas because like I know usually people launch their workbooks with their actual books, but due to finances, I was like, man, I'm just gonna have to separate them, but I'm not gonna leave too much time in between. Like I've already started writing the workbook while the other book is going through publishing and all of that, and so I'm just like, I mean, will that kind of mess me up with sales? Or okay,
No. I have
okay.
a client, actually, interestingly enough, I used to work with her in the old district I worked at. And she wrote a book on helping parents help their kids find college scholarships. And
Mm,
then I helped her write that. And then we started working together. Like as we were finalizing that book, I told her workbooks have a higher perceived value for whatever reason. Like workbooks are
mhm,
usually a lot of blank space. So I never understood why people would pay more for a workbook than they would pay for a
mhm,
book. But I suggested that she paired her book with the workbook. And she was actually more overwhelmed with time because she was still working a 9 to 5, and then with her book, she was doing different speaking engagements on the weekend. So she didn't have a lot of time. So she actually
mhm,
didn't launch her workbook until about 2 years later.
Mhm.
It was totally fine. So now she sells it as a bundle, but it was totally fine. Actually, a lot of people do that where they'll start a book and then they'll come back based on feedback and then they'll add in a workbook. I would
Mhm.
definitely say do a workbook. Like I mentioned, workbooks have a higher perceived value, and especially when you bundle them, it makes you
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I definitely want to do, I want to buy this together. But it doesn't necessarily have to be launched together, not at all. And you'll also find like there's oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of the book. It's Amanda Frances book, and it's about money manifestation. And she launched that like, a year ago, and I bought the book and I loved it. But
Mhm.
recently she launched the workbook and I just didn't feel the need to get the workbook. So like every person's going to be different. Some people may really like the book, some people may really like the workbook and they may want to buy them separate, or you may decide that you want to bundle it and some people want to buy them together. So it definitely doesn't have to be done together, but I would highly recommend down the line that you definitely add a workbook into it.
Okay. Okay, I can do that. And I know like you said that I can start the coaching while I'm going through the certification.
Yeah.
Um so I guess I would just have like reasonable prices, like lower prices than when I do get my certification for now.
So
And then
what Germany did when she got her first client is, so when I talk about pricing, we've talked about this before, but I'll say it again, like in case anybody's watching this replay and hasn't seen any of the other ones. When we think about pricing, we want to find a sweet spot. So we don't want our price to be so high that it's
mhm,
ridiculous that we can't wrap our mind around it and no one else can wrap their mind around it. And we don't want it to be so low that we become resentful and we're like, man, I put in a lot of work and I didn't really get a lot. So like I think about my very first Write Your Book in a Weekend training. I charged $500 for that. So I was
mhm,
essentially on the phone, on Zoom with a client all 8 hours on Saturday and 8 hours on Sunday. So that was
mhm.
16 hours. Plus, they got follow up with me for 30 days. Plus, I had to prep a lot of stuff in the beginning. I
Wow.
made nothing
Oh
from
my
oh,
goodness.
and I mailed them lunch. So I
Wow.
so I DoorDash lunch. So I spent like $40 to $50 on lunch. I spent so much time, like I made nothing, right? So did I help that person? Yes. But I was really like resentful of it because I'm like, man, I just gave 16 hours of my life.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a babysitter for my youngest daughter to get her to and from a track event. Like I was exhausted. I was exhausted. So from moving forward, I was like, I can't charge that price anymore because I felt resentful and I didn't ever want to show. I didn't feel resentful when I was on the call because I didn't realize
Mhm.
I lost until after. Thank God. But
Mhm.
forward, I knew I couldn't charge that price anymore. So you want to find a point that doesn't feel so high that it's ridiculous. You can't wrap your mind around it. And a point that's not so low that you are resentful and you show up in the wrong energy. So what Germany did when she was going through prac that I loved is she put out an offer. She's like, I'm currently studying this, and this, and I'm offering sessions. And she offered them for a price that felt really good for her because it was way more than she made in her 9 to 5, but
Wow.
still less than what she was ultimately going to charge. And so then her first client came in because she told him, like, this is a temporary price while I'm working through my certification. The price will be raised. And so she got it at like a lower price. And then when she graduated, she raised her prices. Now she got a client at that next price, which was
Yeah.
amazing, but it made that first client she got made it a no-brainer because it was like, it's a fast action bonus. Like, get in now while I'm
Mhm.
practicing and you're going to get a really, really good deal. I worked with a copywriter. This was recently, probably like maybe about 3 months ago. I've never worked with a copywriter in my life. So a copywriter is somebody who will like write sales pages for you or write emails for you or write social media posts for you that are really engaging. And I've never worked with a copywriter because in all transparency, they're extremely expensive. And in even more transparency, I feel often like most copywriters can't match my voice as a woman of color in this online space and as a woman who also doesn't cuss. And so a lot of copywriters use a lot of like exotic words because it's engaging, but like
Yeah.
I don't curse. So
Right.
it's not my language. And then also as a woman of color, if I hire a white male to write my copy, it's really hard because he's writing from a male, a
Yeah, that
not a
makes
woman.
sense.
So I was very resistant to writing copy. So all the copy that you've ever seen up until this point has 100% been mine. Like I write every email, I write every social media post, I write every sales page. My master sales page is like my ultimate favorite because I had so much resistance around it. And it took me probably 2 weeks to write it. But what I did is I pulled out a Google Doc, and every time an idea came, I just threw it on there, and then I organized it. And that's like my favorite page. But anyways, recently there was a guy that reached out to me, and he is in a copywriting program. And he was like, I would love to write a series of like 4 emails for you for a really low price. She charged me like $500, which is actually so cheap for a copywriter. Like if you get a copywriter, I paid one copywriter maybe a year ago for an ad that didn't convert, it didn't go well. And I think I paid $500 for an ad, and it's like 2 paragraphs long. Like it was just not worth it. But so anyways, he's like $500 for 4 emails. And if those emails aren't engaging, then you'll get your money back. So I'm like, this is kind of a no-brainer deal. Anyways, I ended up working with him, and this morning he sent over the 4 emails. So I haven't used them yet, but they were really good, like really good. And I realized the thing with him is he's new in this space. And so what he's doing right now is he's offering a no-brainer deal, like compared to any other copywriter in this space, he's offering a no-brainer deal for you to get in early, and then you learn to like his stuff, and then you'll continue to work with him. Because I'll be honest, he's not going to profit off of $500, because I've had one call with him, which was like an hour long, where he had to learn about like my offer, who I am as a person. Then I had another call with him and his assistant, where they were asking like specifics about like what I see in my vision, what type of language I use, trying to match that, looking at, they wanted samples of different things that I've written before. So I've done 2 2-hour calls with him, and I've gone back and forth in email with him forever. And so really there's not a profit for him in this, but long-term wise, he's looking at it like, if I bring her in now at this really affordable rate, and then I raise my rates, but she already likes what I have to offer, she'll continue to work with me. And that's so true. Like if he continues to show up the way he's shown up for this, I will continue to work with him, even if his rates raise, because it takes something off of my plate. And so when you think about your offer as a coach, like it very well could be, because, with Germany's first client, I think originally she only signed up for 1 session. And it was like, I can't even remember the price, but let's just say like $75. She signed up for like 1 session, but loved that session so much that when Germany upsold her into a package, it was like, okay, let's go. Like, let's do the whole package, because it made it a no-brainer, because she got such good value for a lower ticket.
Yeah, that's so good. And I do get that because like you said, even with the free classes, it's almost like a no-brainer. It's like setting them up for a no-brainer. And I also wanted to talk to you about like the Facebook ads. Like how do we do that? Get on the Facebook ads.
I mean, I will be very, very honest. That is also not my jam. I play
Uh-huh.
around. I do run my own Facebook ads currently, but it's a lot of trial and error, because Facebook ads constantly changes. I took a course on Facebook ads about 3 years ago.
Hmm.
It was a wonderful course. I invested a lot of money in it. It was a great course at that time. And then Facebook ads totally changed. Like the way it's set up, the way you run through it, it doesn't even look remotely the same. So for my ads, you use your Facebook page and you go to the ads account. And then it's kind of step by step, but a lot of it is trial and error. So you might run an ad. What I've learned for me and my business model is running an ad to something free is better than running it to something paid. I don't really convert as well when I run it to paid. And that's not to say it doesn't work. Everyone's business is different. So I
Hmm.
often run a free ad to like a master class. Like I just did the Plan Your Profitable Coaching Program workshop. I ran an ad to that, and I got 200 people that signed up for it, right? And then
Hmm.
from there, I then now upsell them into the Elevate method. So where I make the money is when I upsell them into the Elevate method. So
Okay.
with Facebook ads, you figure out what you want to run them to. You create a really engaging picture. And a really engaging writing, or copy is what it's called. So, something that's going to like intrigue people. And then you pick what's called an audience. So you pick like, who do you want it to go to? So typically for my audience, I'll pick women. I pick I usually pick like age 30 to age like 55. That's my typical age for my clients. I've had some people older and some people younger, but right there is like my sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I pick like I'll say UK, Canada, or United States because those are all people that speak English. I can't really pick places where people aren't speaking English, just
Got
because they
it.
speak another language. And then I run it that way. And a lot of it's like tweaking and trial error. So I typically will run my ads for about 2 days and I'll see if it's converting. And by converting, I mean like, are people signing up for what I have to offer? If I run it for 2 days and I got one person that signed up, then I'm like, that's not converting, right? If I run it for
Right.
2 days and I get 12 people that signed up, then I'm like, okay, like, let's see. Also with Facebook ads, you determine how much you want to put into your ads as well. So you could say, I want to put $5 into my ads a day. I want to put $15 into my ads a day. I want to put $100 into my ads. So like I have an ad currently that's running to the Write Your Book in 30 Days training because that's a training that's evergreen that runs all the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
people will sign up for that. And I started off with just like $10 a day, but it converts really well. And so I probably put about $50 a day into the ad. And so it just always runs on the background. So Facebook,
Okay.
I for me, I hired somebody and they stopped running ads. And so I did the course first, then I hired somebody and that person doesn't do ads anymore. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and since then I've kind of played with it, but I am in the process of looking for somebody to do my ads too. I just kind of want it off my plate.
Yeah, I understand.
A lot.
So when you say that you put like $5, $10 into it, is that for how often they run it? Is that there different prices for that?
Oh,
Based.
it will tell you. So let's say I'm running an ad to the Write Your Book in 30 Days training, and I say $5 isn't really enough. It doesn't go as far, but let's say $10. Let's say I said put $10 in it. And it'll say this ad will reach 30 people a day with $10. It'll tell you. Or if I change it and I say, okay, I want to do 20. Okay, this ad will reach about 60 people a day at that. And it tells you the reach, like how far it'll reach, but it doesn't tell you the conversions because it can't tell you that. So it might reach
Mhm.
60 people, but of the 60 people, maybe only 10 people are actually interested in it and sign up.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Yeah, and then as you too, this is like way down the line, but like when you build an email list, you can also do what's called a lookalike audience. So like now that I have people in my funnel like you, and so now Facebook knows like people like Taisha would be interested in something that Nicolia has to offer. I
Mm-hmm.
can create a lookalike audience. And so what it does is it looks at people that I have in my space that like what I have to offer, and it creates an audience that's similar to them. So for example, it may give me women of color, because a lot of my clients are women of color. It may give me millennials, because a lot of my clients are millennials. It
Mm-hmm.
may give me people that are located in Texas, because for whatever reason, a lot of my clients are located in Texas. Like, so it'll give me things that are very similar, and it'll start narrowing down where it sends my ads based on where people have shown interest.
Got it. Got
So,
it. That
but
makes so
that's
much.
again, you build into that. Like it took a while for me to build a lookalike audience, and now that I have one, that's a little bit more hopeful.
Okay. And I was on a free training on Monday, and she was talking about funnels. So it's so funny that you've been talking about that during this call. And I was just thinking about I'm sorry, my children, they're screaming
I
so
don't
they
even
throw
hear
me
them.
off.
I don't even hear. Girl, I can mute a child so quick. But I got my
Oh my
own.
God. Yes. So she was thinking about, because she actually said what you said. She was like, your audience have to trust you. And that's why you have to offer free stuff. You can't just be throwing prices out there. Like they have to trust your product. They have to trust you. They buy into you pretty much. And so I was just thinking like with my book signing, I'm gonna have a book signing in person one. And I was just thinking with that, I wanted to have like flyers, like a card where the coaching will be there. If you need further coaching to kind of have them, have a website available for them so that they can do coaching. And that was one thing to tie in coaching. And I know you told me to keep my coaching business separate from ministry just because of how people mindsets can kind of be set on when it comes to ministry. Um, and I am going to keep them separate, but I was thinking to still promote it while doing ministry. Is that okay?
Well, and maybe I should rephrase that. I think that when I think of like separate, I think that there are going to be people. It's funny, I'm always in this weird spot where I have people that think that I'm way too like, they're like, oh my gosh, what you're doing is so against God's will. Like I had somebody write, I have a video on YouTube called I'm a Christian and a Hypnotherapist. And I mean, I had a guy drag me on YouTube the other day.
Wow.
He's like, you're going straight to hell. This is so demonic. And I'm like, I'm literally teaching people how our brains work. Like, it's just like
Yeah,
a psychology class in college. So, and I talk
exactly.
about like Bible verses. It was very similar to the Clubhouse talk we did, where I talked about the way that I felt more connected with God through hypnosis. So, anyways, I get that. But then I also get the other extremes where people are like, oh, you're way too religious and they feel unattracted to me. So I've realized that I run into people that are very similar to you. One, I respect everyone's model of the world. I am not sending anyone to hell. That the Bible already said I don't have the ability to do that, right? So I'm not that person. I'm respecting everyone's model of the world. And I'm just going to be me. I'm an unapologetic believer, right? And I believe that I can be a light in a dark place. But I also believe that there's going to be people that don't understand me. So you don't necessarily have to fully keep it separate, but you can understand that some people may not see how they intertwine. I actually have an old coach of mine who she does manifestation, and she's a pastor, and she talks all about manifestation from a spiritual lens. And I mean, when I tell you, so many people were mad at her, but her perspective is mind blowing, like mind blowing. You
Wow.
don't necessarily have to keep them fully separate, but I guess what I meant was like people may not see how the two overlap, and that's where you can kind of bridge that gap. Is you can talk about like how they all like intertwine, or how people. This is the perfect example. Has nothing to do with spirituality. People didn't understand how book writing and coaching were the same thing. When I started my business, I started focusing solely on book writing, and then I knew I wanted to like teach people how to coach, like how to build a coaching business, because I was coaching people in my book writing program. And I remember at the time I was working with the coach, and she was like, no one's ever going to understand how they intertwine. And I'm not joking, but the last 4 clients I brought into the Elevate method, and then you as well, and Erica, and I'm trying to think, and Alexis. Am I missing anybody else? So
Uh,
quite a few
yeah.
of my clients have come from the book writing bootcamp over
Wow.
into the Elevate method, when everyone told me no one saw how those two would intertwine, right? Want to write a
Mm.
book, they want to leverage that book, and they want to build a coaching business. I saw the vision, but no one else saw it. And so here's the thing, like, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, if it makes sense to you, you can still do it. I just more so wanted you to be prepared that people may not see necessarily your perspective, but that's where you get to bridge that gap. You get to show them like, this is how the two overlap. This is how they intertwine. And so
Mhm.
you can totally do that.
Yeah, because you know, I love the balance that you give, because you do, you let everybody know that you are a Christian girl. You are this, you are that, you're a believer, but at the same time, you have studied the mind, and these are other avenues that we have, besides just praying and waiting and, doing, we can definitely still do that, but these are the other things that we can do to just access the power of our mind. And so when I seen that, and I was like, Thomas, this is it, because when people were like speaking this over my life, and they were just like, I see ministry in a marketplace over you, like you're not the
Ooh.
they were just like, you're not the typical preacher, you don't want to be like everybody else, you're very innovative, you like to explore. And I said, I do. Like, when you had told me that this is what you offer, and we hear about a whole lot of stuff, and then we go to Vegas, we see these shows. And
Yep.
you're like, no, this is not stage hypnosis. It's so much more than that. And I was just like, I trust you, Dr. Nicolia. Like, I've already bought into you, and I've invested like in myself by doing this. And so I trusted you. I'm like, yeah, I just trust your spirit. But also, I see how you handle those that are non-believers as well, because you have clients that are non-believers
Yeah.
and you respect what they believe in. And
Yes.
I be like, man, that's all, that's what it's about, just respect, you know, like,
If we think about it, if we're honest, and I don't want to get overly religious here, but if we're honest, you think Jesus sat in the church and talked to a whole bunch of church folks? No. Jesus went
no.
out and he talked to the sinners, he talked to the saints, he
Mhm.
talked to the straight, he talked to the LGBTQ. Jesus talked to everybody. So
Everyone,
why would
yeah.
I say no, I'm not gonna talk to you, I'm not gonna work with you, I'm not gonna be around you, like, because you don't believe the same things that I believe. That doesn't make that's not how we're taught to be.
Yes, that's so true. And I solely believe in that. Like, that's my life, because those, like, is different type of cultures that come to me, different type of beliefs, different sexualities. They come to me and I used to be like, God, why do they come to me? And he just let me know, because, you know, through love and kindness have I drawn thee. And that's pretty much the secret sauce. That's
Because
the
they
secret
trust you. You
sauce.
created a safe space. You know,
Yeah.
and think about it. I want you to also think about it beyond this, okay? So like when we think
Okay.
about like our own business, technically you can control who you want to work with, who you don't want to work with. But think about like, let's say that I know you're in school for counseling. Let's say that you got
Mhm.
a job as a counselor. Can you pick who you to work?
No.
No,
Come on
you're going to
now.
get a client that's not a believer. You're going to get a
Mhm.
client that is a believer. You're going to get a client that identifies a certain way sexually or whatever it may be. We don't get to pick. We don't get
Mhm.
to pick. We don't
Yeah,
do that at all. And I
that's
think
so
about that
true.
all the time. Like it's setting the intention that God knows, one, God knows our heart, but two, setting the intention that the right things will take place at the right time. And I really believe. I think about that when we send our children to school. We don't know if their teachers are believers. We don't know
Yeah,
what their teachers are. We
exactly.
don't know any of
Exactly.
that. We don't know any of
Mhm.
that. So why should we get into it? Why should we get in, all up in arms and say, oh, I only want to work with a person that looks like this or acts like this or things like that? That's not the real world. That is not
Yeah.
the real world.
Yeah, and it's not real ministry.
That's it. It's not real ministry. It's not. It's not real ministry. If
Mhm.
you sit in church and you talk to people that already believe, and you preaching the gospels to people that already know and believe, you're missing the people that need to hear it. That's why I struggle.
Yes.
I struggle a lot with like churches that are like, oh, don't come in here, unless you're saved. Well, then who are you
What?
talking to? Who are you?
Who are
Who
you
are you
pulling
reaching?
in?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you're
that's
missing
so
a
true.
large majority of people. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And that's why I was just like, God, in my book, when I say in my book, I've been the most transparent that I have ever been in my life and on a platform to the world, like, this is because I feel like, and it's not just me just telling all my business, but it's also me throwing out keys, of how they can navigate their purpose, through all of that, through all of where God don't expect us to be perfect, and I was like, it's time. It's time for me to tell my truth. It's just time. And so through that, I know it's going to draw more people, because, when you do that, it makes more people want to be transparent about the things behind closed doors, that nobody else
Everybody's
sees.
talking about.
Yeah, nobody else talks about. I know it's going to draw that. And like with my coaching business, when I do get my degree for counseling and my certification with that, I do want to add counseling services to it. So is that something that I can do, or would that
Well,
be
that's a state. So I want to say two things. One, or I'm sorry, my pastor said someone's breakthrough is tied up in the testimony you're unwilling to share. So I just want to
Mm,
validate the fact that you're
wow,
transparent in that book. That testimony is going to break somebody through. I really felt that.
wow. Thank you for
Um, the second thing is, can you weave in counseling with coaching? So you can definitely, but a lot of it depends on your state regulation. So for example, in my state, you have to be you have to be licensed as an independent counselor to be able to work on your own accord. And that's one of my biggest regrets. So I went through my counseling program. I got my counseling license, which is an LPC license. So I'm a licensed professional counselor. And I did that for probably about 3 years. And then I was like, oh, I want to become an independent counselor just in case I ever want to open my own counseling agency. So that
Okay.
was like my focus. Well, then at the same time, I this is before I was fully divorced, but me and my ex were kind of really going through a rough patch. And so he had moved out. So I was semi single parenting at this time. And so
Mhm.
I couldn't do my clinical work the way that I wanted to because my clinical work was not like traditional hours. I could go see a client. I was working with kids that lived in like traumatic homes, and I could go see a client at 3 o'clock, and then they could have been brutally beaten, and I couldn't leave them until we could find an arrangement for them. So I could work all the way till 9 o'clock some days, 10 o'clock some days. Like my hours were
Sure.
literally all over the place. So then I decided to go back to school and pick up my school counseling license, which was a really easy add on because I have what's considered kind of like a double master's in clinical counseling as well as school counseling. And I went back for school counseling because the hours were guaranteed. I could still do the same kind of work that I loved, but I would work a typical 8 to 4 o'clock and have the summers off and have, winter break and all and have the same schedule as my kids. So when I went back into the school place, that's a whole different license. So I never ended up getting independently licensed. So all I have currently is a licensed counselor license, professional counselor license, and a school counselor license. I don't have an independent license. So for me to work with somebody one on one, let's say that you are my client and I'm a counselor, I would have to hire a supervisor. And
I
it's not hard, but basically what that means is I would work with you, and then once a week I need to meet with a supervisor. So I could do that. I could have my own counseling agency and I could work with a supervisor. But what I really found was there was a lot of, and this is my personal experience. I actually talk about this on my blog this month, but I found that there was
mhm.
a lot of red tape rules and restrictions around the way that counseling looked. And so insurance
Mhm.
would only bill so much. You have to always diagnose. There were just a lot of things that I didn't personally love. And when I fell into the coaching realm, oh my God, I felt like it felt so aligned. It felt so perfect.
Yeah.
Naturally, I am a natural counselor. Like
Yeah.
I've always been this person. When I think about being little, I remember one time I was at the movie theater and a lady who was in a very scary domestic violence relationship was in the bathroom with me. And I couldn't have been older than like 12. And she ran up to me and was like telling me her whole story and like begging me to help her. And I basically helped this lady escape from a domestic violence situation. I
Wow.
walked out. I like went over and got like an officer while she was pretending to use the bathroom. It became this whole thing. But I think back to little moments where God was giving me like dropping little nuggets here and there, like you're a counselor, you're a counselor. So
Wow.
for me, because coaching is unregulated, and in a lot of ways that's bad, right? A lot of people will call
Mhm.
themselves coaches, but don't really have the skills, don't really have the passion. And that's the part that I struggle with. But in other ways, I like it because I can have my own coaching business. I don't have
Mhm.
to have some special supervisor that I fall under. I can craft and create my programs the way that I want them to look. Like, so there's a little bit more wiggle room. I will say that I don't regret my counseling degree, though. I feel like a lot of what I learned in school, I can weave and take in and apply over here. And um, a lot of what I've learned here in coaching, I can always weave back into should I decide, years down the road, I want to open
That's
my
good.
counseling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so, so good. Because I was just thinking, I know that there's a lot of restrictions around counseling, and I'm like, man, can I, incorporate that in? Because I know, like, I was going to incorporate spiritual counseling with me being a ordained minister next year, next February. I'll actually have my certificate. Yay. So
Awesome.
I'm like, yeah, I could add spiritual counseling, according to that up under my church. And so, and like my husband and I, we provide, like, we're directors over our marriage ministry at the church. So, that's like a group therapy in a sense, and counseling group. But I just, I wanted to still add that spiritual piece for those that solely just wanted the spiritual side of me, without all the other stuff. And I was just wondering, because I know that I can use my psychology degree for coaching, because it really ties in. We're all talking
Big
about the
time.
mind.
Big time. We talk about the mind
Um,
body connection, the way our mind works, the
mhm.
brain, all of it. It big time ties in.
Yeah. And this was like one day I was praying, I'm telling you, like, I'm actually getting into the video that I'm doing, that we discussed, but I'm like, oh my God, Dr. Nicolia has been an answer. because oh my God, like I really felt that. You have been an answer. Like I will pray, but the answer will come through you, or to come out your mouth, or to come through your methods of doing things. And one day I was praying because I'm just like, God, with me having my children, I have to show up for them. I have to show up as a wife and at church. I'm like, I have to show up so much and I pull so many ways, but I'm still only one person. And I said, schooling is taking a long time for me, with how I have to do it and pace myself. And I said, God, I need you to speed up my time. What can I do to speed up my time? And then, I had that whole incident of trying to go through another program. And he was like, just wait, I'm working on something like this. He was like, wow. I'm like, really? Okay, well, you
Yeah.
let me know when you launch your stuff and I'm in. And then when it was time for me to come in, and just thank you so much. And so when it was time for me to come in, I'm just like, oh my God, this was the answer. And then as you're going along through your program, you're like, okay, well, here's the layout for 9 weeks. I'm like, 9 weeks, baby, that's
But
way better than
it's
four
funny.
years.
It's funny to hear your perspective because on the same end, it's like you guys are answered prayers for me because even I told you, like when I started the coaching piece, everyone was like, no, that's not going to tie. And so when you came to me and you're like, hey, what do you think about me joining a life coaching program? And I'm like, whoa, I'm getting ready to do one. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was confirmation for me that, oh, people do want to know that. Like I can do this. And then when you guys are like, man, I'm trying to figure out how to move through this program quicker. All right, let me figure out how do I create a syllabus, a guide to graduation that walks us through it, organize it better. Like, so even that feedback that you guys give, it helps me like expand and grow too. It really does. And for me, a lot of times I'm just being obedient. And then when I get that confirmation from one of my clients that they ask a question or they're concerned about something or whatever, I'm like, okay, like there's my answer. There it is.
That's so cool. I love it. And I felt that like when I was texting you or messaging you, it was like, oh, okay. I like it was confirmation, like, oh, okay, I'm moving in the right direction. So I can't wait. I did do like the journaling assignment that you gave us this week. I've been doing my power hours, and you was just like, speak those things, basically speak those things as if they were, say congratulate yourself on your graduation. Like you even have that in the Elevate method. Like, congratulations, you've already graduated, you've come to the end. I'm like, man, this is so cool. And I just kept speaking it over myself, like, you're going to finish this, Taisha, you're going to finish this. And so I thank you. I know that we're like up with our hour, and I got the whole hour
I
with
know. I was
Dr.
like, this was
Nakoya.
good. This was good. You don't even got to do your one-on-one. I mean, unless you want to later, but I'm like, you're getting a lot of like things back to back and like questions answered. But I feel like it was good to help you flesh out your ideas because I want you to see that what you're envisioning in your mind can actually come into fruition as well. Like it can actually happen for you. So I'm glad. I feel like this was definitely meant to be. And I'm really glad that you got to like flesh out those ideas. So definitely if you start fleshing out your master class, your slides or your layout, bring that to next month's Q&A and let's talk about it. Or you can post it in the group if you
Okay.
want to. And let's talk about like, what does that look like? And I can really help you kind of work through some of that too.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'll be working on that. Thank you, Dr. Nakoya.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to hang on here just because the master student should be coming in soon. So I'll hang on, but I will
Okay.
see you in the group. And oh my gosh, I had such a fun time with you today with some of those questions.
Same here. Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
Okay. You too. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.